guys, I'm Demi Lovato.
I'm Jason Derulo.
I'm Emily Goldie.
NetSupport Radio for the latest in technology and education news. NetSupport. When it comes to school IT management, there has never been a better time to change.
And hi there, and welcome to NetSupport Radio. It's me, Al Kingsley here, and I'm really pleased to be joined today by Henry Platten, founder of eCadets and GoBubble.
Hi.
Hi Henry, and welcome to NetSupport Radio.
Thank you very much.
Always a good start on our show. Could we ask you very briefly just to give us a brief synopsis, a little bit about you?
Yeah, of course. I feel is that all right? Okay, and we're done. No, I feel really blessed to work with schools across the UK and internationally, helping kids to be safe. And the whole approach that we have is that it's kids teaching other kids. And that goes back to my history as a police sergeant and just really wanting to make the internet a safer place.
Fantastic. And the last time we met was the big EdTech debate. I think it was the third iteration that we did.
It was.
Up in North Wales, and we were very lucky to meet some fantastic young people who I know you'd had some work with your eCadets at. What did you think about the EdTech debate overall?
I think it's brilliant. I think in terms of just being able to take a bit of time out from everything that's going on with EdTech, come together with like-minded people, but also in terms of people from different backgrounds and different experiences within the whole arena of EdTech, and then just really chew the fat, talk about some of the issues that are there, and also find some common ground. Even though people are coming from different perspectives, you find solutions can start to come from there. So I thought what was really interesting about the last debate in particular, Ty was there, Ty Goddard, and he was sharing input in terms of looking at really the holistic view of the whole country, and then in particular the work that he's doing internationally and what EdTech companies need to do to actually help bring that forward.
It was also nice hearing him very much the focus on trying to provide a way to facilitate those from education who have great ideas to take that leap from the education into the commercial world as well.
Yeah, definitely. You look at solutions that have been created in the past, and for me, those which are the golden ones, really the ones to look at, are those where they've worked very closely with teachers. So either teachers themselves have taken that step out to go and create it, or the organisations have worked very closely, hand in glove with teachers, to make sure that the pedagogy is built in. I thought it was great as well hearing from Kelly in terms of from a practicing teacher and also a digital leader within Wales, the work that she's been doing in terms of how to translate that into the classroom and to help the kids and the children to become digital leaders. And then also, it's always great hearing Mark and just his view in terms of the tech and how it's evolving, and then again how to translate that into the learning outcomes that can come through.
Absolutely, and as you know, like yourself, Mark's very much a friend of NetSupport and being involved in lots of our different activities. But personally, I always look at it as being very much an offshoot of my PLN now, and I think I suppose it's almost that safe place where you can chew the fat and put some of the more crazy ideas up there and get that kind of feedback from your peers as to whether that's got some value. But it seems to be going from strength to strength in terms of audience, and as we mentioned, having Kelly bring both her experience and her young people into the mix as well was fantastic, and fantastic to see the bond they have with her. She's obviously really made a difference for those young people, which is lovely to see.
Yeah, definitely, and some of the topics that the kids were talking about as well, incredibly emotive and emotional ones. You're talking about stresses over suicide and also some of the mental health issues that can come through from tech, and their appreciation of the issues, but also the outcomes in terms of the solutions that they want to put forward are fantastic. I think there's so much that we can learn from that as adults, and that's why it was great to have the opportunity of having the kids present there, and then certainly then helping to inform our debate which followed on from it.
Absolutely. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you was, any good ideas you had to take away from it? Now, I struggle with that because certainly with the likes of Mark Anderson involved, normally I run out of ink for writing down notes of the latest 500 apps that he's come across that can add value. But are there any particular pointers that you would pull away from the last debate, or any suggestions that I think that's something to go away and have an investigate from?
Yeah, I think, for me, there are a couple of big ones. One of the first, which Mark did put forward, which I have ensured that I have done, is to actually look at a digital detax. So, because tech is such a large part of my life, and in particular social media, that ensuring you afford yourself that downtime, really to step back and reflect, and that was fantastic. So that was a good bit of advice there that he gave, which I've already followed through on. I think from Ty's perspective, where again he was talking about how the EdTech sector can move on. The community was a big part of that, and actually how we should work closer together. I mean, that's why I feel blessed that we can work closely with yourselves at NetSupport, and also in terms of that PLN, ensuring that the EdTech debate is the great launch pad where we can all come together, but then actually it's following through on the outcomes that come from it. So for me, I've actually been sitting down and making notes from the EdTech debate and then watching it back and thinking, right, okay, yeah, we need to look at that and carry it forward, and ensuring that you don't lose that momentum.
Absolutely. And before we kind of move away from the topic, from the big EdTech debate, I think we have to mention the infamous Mr. Prue, who has just been very much that central lead of that debate, and and he's amazing. And it was great to see him working with young people, as obviously he does with his radio station and his training with children. But he's certainly been a really strong lead on the EdTech debates, hasn't he?
He is. I mean, Russ is an absolute legend. As you say, his empathy and his warmth towards working with kids and showing them the respect.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a real key strength that Russ has. It's never a case that he's talking down to them or trying to lecture them. He actually actively involves and is genuinely interested in what they have to say, and is a massive champion of student voice. And as you say, with the work that he does with Anderson Radio, it's great that he's giving that voice to so many kids from so many different parts of the UK.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing, when I first met Russell and was looking at the impact of school radio in schools, I very much saw it as something, within the sector of performing arts. And yet, that's my ignorance was showing at that point, because actually when you see it in terms of developing child confidence, discussion skills, writing skills, planning skills, there are so many strands.
Yeah.
I find it hard to understand why every school, budgets aside, doesn't have a radio station to help develop that talent. So it's great to have such a strong crew around the table, and each debate, it seems to have grown with some extra faces, which is lovely.
Yes, definitely.
Turn your radio up.
Hi everyone, my name is Megan Trainor.
Hey everybody, it's Charlie Puth.
Let's move it, get it on.
Tag the show on Twitter. Just use the hashtag NetSupport Radio.
This is crazy, but here's my number. So call me later.
NetSupport Radio for the latest in technology and education news.
You got a perfect one, so put it on me.
Welcome to NetSupport Radio.
Welcome back, and you're here with myself, Al Kingsley, and Henry Platten, and we're talking all things Digit and EdTech today, so welcome back, Henry.
Yeah, no, it's nice to be back. And actually, I know you're the question master, you are the lead for this, but actually I want to flip the roles, if that's okay, and I want to ask you a question.
Flip the flipping, absolutely.
Flip the flipping, yeah. So obviously, recently we've teamed up together and we've strengthened the alliance that exists between NetSupport and eCadets, which we're incredibly excited about. And very much in terms of looking at the e-safety and the digital citizenship and moving that forward for schools. And what I'd like to know, and it'd be great to discuss this, is what's the rationale for yourself in terms of that alliance that we now have together?
I think that's a really good question, and unfortunately quite a broad question in terms of the different areas. Most people who know NetSupport as an organisation know that across our range of tools, and our focus is very much on the EdTech space and very much supporting schools all around the world. Our product lines have always been split into these kind of three key areas. There's the area of providing the instructional technology and assessment tools within the classroom, the tools for the network manager to make sure that the whole school site is effectively operating and provide that instant support. And then we provide the e-safety and safeguarding tools. As an organisation, lots of the team, including myself, are also involved heavily in education in different roles, whether it's governors, trustees, and so on. And we're always conscious of the fact that when it comes to the safeguarding side, technology's place is to capture and inform. And that inform is really to give DSLs and teachers a sense of where there may be a child that's vulnerable or at risk when we're talking within the safeguarding and context. And that's great, and that's really key, because what we've seen with lots of solutions historically has been they create lots of chatter, they create lots of alerts or information, and it's really hard to see the wood from the trees.
Yeah.
So we wanted to use our, as it will be next year, 30 years experience developing solutions to say, how can we make that information more succinct, more accurate, provide context? So we join all those bits up together, and we absolutely believe, based on where we sell and our schools that we have on board, that we have a market-leading solution in terms of providing that intelligence. But if we go back one step further, ultimately we want young people to be digital citizens and be informed, so that there's much less alerts, triggers and risks of our young people being put at harm online, or frankly how they conduct themselves in life. And that's something that software alone can never fix. So in order to do that, it seems obvious to us to align ourselves with the specialists in that area who have the experience and most importantly the trust with schools that what they're providing is something that's credible. And you and I have known each other for a while, but we absolutely know that eCadets is respected as the best solution out there as an overall holistic approach for young people. And as we like to be best of breed, why not make sure we're working with the best as well? And I hope what we're offering is both from not really from a commercial ultimately, there's a real moral side to this, which is we're all parents, we work in schools as well as working in the edtech space. We want young people to be safe. We need to support ever pressurised teachers and staff in schools who keep being allocated another responsibility. Now, safeguarding first and foremost. Every person in a school, whatever the hat, that's your first and foremost role, giving a child a safe, secure place to. But the remit of digital citizenship is not one that's unreasonable to ask schools to be involved in, as long as you provide the resources and the time. And I think where the challenge comes, much like safeguard your children online without having the tools to do it, is there's a will, we just need to make sure we find the right guidance and advice. So we're really, really excited to be working in a much closer alliance with eCadets. We think it's a great way that we can develop and improve the educational content that we provide, the advice, the resources. And I love the idea, why not have that value add? You know, I want people to come to our website and have a range of free resources they can access. They're not all about selling software, they're just about giving people a head start. You know what, and in most things in life, what comes around goes around. You know? So this is a great opportunity and I'm really excited to be working to you. So I'm going to flip it around. What about you? What do you think? You're obviously here and you're laughing, so we must be getting on okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, it's lovely to hear the words, the very kind words that you said, and also some of the words that really resonated in terms of the excitement. So yes, there's mutual excitement from us, but very much around that holistic and that paying it forward. So for us, we see eCadets and NetSupport as two pieces of the same jigsaw. And really having that close alliance and friendship together will only strengthen the work for the schools. Because again, and it's lovely what you said about eCadets and our standing within schools and the trust that they have with us. At the same time, looking for, when you're training kids and giving them the opportunities, you have to ensure that there are the correct software procedures in the school to give them that safe playground where they can then actually put the skills and the behaviours which we're trying to help them with into practice. And that's not through the eCadet site, that's across everything they use in the school.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, and it has to run in the school and then they take that back home. And it's really interesting, for us, we've been in the sector now for not as long as yourselves, and happy birthday for next year.
Thank you very much.
But, having worked with schools now through eCadets for 7, almost coming on 8 years, and then, beforehand in my role in the police, going back and working with matters there with schools as well. It's interesting when you look from our perspective at the sector and you look at providers within the sector for software solutions. And there seems to be a very clear divide. There are people who create solutions and then roll them out to the sector with very little engagement or thought for the schools in terms of actually what do they need and what the solutions that have to be there. And very much from our perspective, NetSupport isn't just the best that happens to sit within the sector. You're the true innovator. You're the one that isn't just resting on the laurels and saying, okay, well, we know we're the best and here we are. You're continually improving the solutions. And it's that thirst for being the best that can be there by providing the best solution to the schools and working with them, which for us is so appealing about our relationship because it comes back to our own DNA. In everything we do within eCadets, we work very closely with schools, we work very closely with teachers to ensure that the solution and the resources that we put out there are the best that they can be. And that's exactly the same way that we view NetSupport and the drive and the journey and the mission that you're on here and everybody at NetSupport in terms of you want to ensure that everything is exactly right, not just for schools in general, but for every specific school that you work with. And that's one of the interesting things is that schools, it doesn't matter if you're only a mile apart, every school is completely different. But the care that you show towards schools in terms of how you support them, but also the solutions that you co-create with them is just fantastic.
It's really kind, but I think it comes back to a simple philosophy, which is you either go for a quick sale or a long-term relationship.
Yeah.
And in the education space, rightly, it's all about collaboration. People share ideas, they share thoughts, and they also share bad thoughts. And if you try and put substandard product into the marketplace, people find out about it, and it doesn't do you any harm, nor does it benefit anybody. So what's the point?
Yeah, exactly.
It's always about long term, and that's why I'm always proud of NetSupport being, rolling up to its 30th anniversary, because it says along the way we've obviously made the right choices of working with people, not just trying to get in and out quickly and make money on that.
Yeah, and also comes back to the resources as well. People can churn out resources that we see and actually potentially do more harm than if they hadn't actually released it at all.
It's frustrating when you see those supposed supporting documents that really can muddy the water, I guess. Anyway, the only part I was going to mention was you mentioned about how it resonates with your own DNA. Unfortunately, we've copyrighted that term now for NetSupport DNA, so I'm going to have a word with you about a royalty payment after this interview. Nonetheless, let's move on from that shock news. We've talked a little bit, and you've mentioned a bit about eCadets, obviously, and how we perfectly kind of dovetail in terms of solutions. For that rare person in the UK who's not heard of eCadets, would you be able to just find a very brief synopsis of what it's all about?
Yeah, of course. At eCadets, our mission is to make the internet a safer place for kids. That's what drives us. Our solution is about empowering and educating children to help their friends to be safe. So we put it very much in the hands of the kids. So what they're doing is they're delivering our activities, they're supporting their friends in school by standing up in front of class and delivering the lessons regularly, geared for every age group from age 3, 4 upwards, because you have to start really nice and early, and it ensures that every single child in the school gets that online safety training, but they're hearing it from their peers, and that's where the real impact comes through. It's kids teaching kids.
Now, you talked about that age group. What's the minimum age group?
We start in reception. As a parent myself, and my kids are 2 and 6, one of the things which I increasingly became aware of with Sophia when she was 2 is that you're teaching her, radiators are hot, knives can be sharp, but at the same time they'll pick up a device and use it. So why not start to introduce some very early messages around online safety? So we do. So from reception, working all the way upwards, we're starting to lay that foundation. Because if you really want to introduce behaviours and ensure that they're instilled and remain, waiting till year 5, year 6 is too late. It's already in place. You need to take it right back to day one.
And flipping that question the other way around, what about maximum age?
we have had in the past eCadets go into centres for elderly residents in the community and actually teach them about online safety. And it was great hearing the kids from Cornish Park in the last big EdTech debate, because I know that for this academic year they've already reached out in their community to a local shelter for older residents, and they've already structured in training times where they're going to be going in to that centre to regularly train some of the older members of the community with the knowledge that we've given them through the eCadet program. And it's just great. And also, again, I think in terms of looking at that age, I'm going to flip the flip back to you, because again, I think it nicely fits in.
It's like having Anderson in the room.
He's always here. He's like Obi-Wan. He's just there in the background. So I think with regards to that, it's great seeing the proactive tools that exist within NetSupport DNA. And in terms of that age, it'd be great to know, what's your focus in terms of for DNA?
I think we touched on it earlier, and absolutely, our core business is about providing those tools to be proactive. And we've kind of looked and said, well, actually, the key in terms of being proactive and being credible and being accurate is really all about context. And so, like everything in life, our number one safeguarding tools are our eyes and ears. And if you want to try and add to that layer technology to support you, when we look at things with eyes and ears, it's not just that one trigger word that means something to us, but it's the sentence around it. What time of day, what location, what were they doing? So I think if we translate that kind of concept and we put it into a technological sense, NetSupport DNA as a suite of tools is really broken down into 3 core chunks. So one part we're best known on, what we've been delivering from the get-go is our classroom instructional tools, which started off as that kind of screen monitoring and controlling student behaviour on their use of IT, but now is much more about Ofsted-linked assessment tools, learning journals, supporting a flipped classroom, and all sorts of other activities. And then, obviously, with so much diverse IT in schools and limited budget to replace kit as well, there's the second part of the technology, which is all about tools for the IT manager to get the most out of what you've got. See what machines are being used, which can be deployed elsewhere, wasted software licenses, make sure you're not wasting on power. GDPR is a big topic. Hopefully it's just dying down a little bit. But GDPR says know where your files are, keep things secure, and again, DNA has a wealth of tools to support that. And then the third part, which is like an equal part of the mixture, which is very much what we're talking about today, is our e-safety and safeguarding component. And I suppose that starts on the bit about intelligence and the context. So Henry's in a classroom or in a school, and he has access to either a PC or he's got his own device and it's linked to the school network. What websites, what applications, what time of day, what's Henry doing? We might then say, from a school point of view, there's a list of websites linked to keeping children safe in education. We need to filter that by age-appropriate websites for the student. We might also be looking and saying, just from a behavioural point of view, we don't want certain apps. Maybe Minecraft is blocked during school hours until 3:15 when it's active for after-school clubs within the school. When we drill down into the safeguarding bit, if you're on websites, if you're in a chat session, you're dealing with people, it's the context of, what did you say? What was the sentence around it? Did that keyword trigger in the same way as it would to you in your ear, in a system sense? Would that trigger that's just something I need to be aware of? So it all then comes back to having that key database of, phrases that would trigger that, what do I need to do about that? Yeah. And that's not something that you can do overnight. So we've worked very much about those keywords and contexts, working with educators in different locations, because the short phrase for cannabis or something like that is different in the north of England to the south of England, bullying terms and so on. And we've built this database of all these tools, but also we've applied the context, the time of day, the application being used, and a word typed online or a sentence in a chat forum probably is more concerning than one in a PowerPoint where it's isolated, so that context can also help. And then we kind of said, okay, well, every time we see something that's we'll fire off an email to you. I don't think so, because at the end of the day, the DSL opens their inbox, they've got 50 emails, and somewhere in there may be a child that's researching self-harm or suicide, who's desperate, and that's not a topic that can be left till tomorrow morning. No. So how do you do that? So you set thresholds to make sure that the really important terms that relate to suicide and self-harm flag immediately. That I'm going to call them the lesser terms. They're all relevant, but the terms that have less immediacy associated with, and that can be anything from, young people being young people, researching inappropriate content, to perhaps being the start of being groomed online, and we work with IWF for all their keywords to make sure that context, to body image, which probably would trigger a school assembly or a topic in a more indirect way to support children, self-harm and so on. So we kind of filter those bits out. Where it's really serious, we give you kind of video clips and imagery of what the child was doing before and after, so there's that extra context and evidence. But for the mainstream terms, we build based on year group or whole school and time ranges, word clouds that let schools see what the trending topics are. It looks at the moment like the girls in year 10, this seems to be a trending topic. There's also lots and lots of bullying terms, suddenly in year 7. We've seen from some of the boys, is there an integration issue? And then, of course, you also have to have the mix of, we have an awful lot of EAL students. The diversity of what make our country, and our schools reflect that fantastic diversity. But when we have young people arriving in our schools from elsewhere, we want to make sure we can provide that same level of oversight to keep them safe and secure as every other child. So we need to have phrases in there for all the languages we expect might be spoken in our schools. And of course, I'll give an example. If I'm from Germany and I'm on a UK keyboard, I'm not going to be typing with umlauts and so on. And so other languages become more extreme in the differences. So young people type phonetically in their local language but on an English keyboard, and you have to cater for that. The biggest one is you have to keep going back to schools. You have to keep talking with teachers and educators. You and I have spoken because with your relationship with many schools around the country, and we've talked about Wales, supporting our development of the language kit there. There's loads of those areas where it becomes that building. So DNA provides, it saves that time, that critical thing that we talk about for teachers, and of course the biggest cost in schools, so that the system can proactively give the information they need. For older children, when we start talking, later on in secondary, For a long time, the guidance has been about providing access for young people to resources that they might need to access. So perhaps, a typical example would be things like FGM topics, where schools should be putting posters in places where young girls can access and see that information in private and choose to.
Yeah.
So if we translate that to the technology sense, give children an icon on their desktop that when they click on it, it provides a list of approved and appropriate websites where children can go to, whether it's Childline, Ask Frank for drug advice, all sorts of different topics, and make that information available. Of course, you expect schools can control what's on that list, they can add to it things that are more local or appropriate for their young people, but again, it's making sure that that's there, and at the same time providing a really easy, safe link for a young person to ask, report a concern or ask for help from a member of staff. What we found was, just because you have, Fred as your form tutor, it doesn't necessarily mean that for every type of problem a student might feel comfortable talking to Fred. They might prefer Miss Jones or Miss Smith because it's a different type of issue. So that kind of safe, secure way. So we're looping it all together, and then we're kind of saying, now we've done that and validate it, back to the professionals, the educators. Now you've got that condensed and more focused view. Hopefully it works. Now, our relationship with yourselves, if everybody was an outstanding digital citizen, you'd like to think there's never any keyword triggered, but the reality is it's always going to be an uphill battle, and I think it's a combination, isn't it? Never in education does one thing magically fix everything.
No.
Often we see nationally golden bullets offered that we're told this will radically change education, and for those few that don't muck it up altogether, it isn't. It's a sum of small parts. But I think for NetSupport and with the landscape with eCadets, what we're saying is we've got this solution that meets those three parts of basically managing the whole IT estate within a school, and at the same time that alliance to say, and if you have concerns about young people's behaviour based on what we're capturing, perhaps you need to be dealing with eCadets to get that education in at the grassroots, and over time hopefully you'll see those level of issues diminish. So I think it's a lovely kind of mix from that point of view.
You are listening to the one and only NetSupport Radio.
Hey, this is Justin Bieber.
This is Gwen Stefani. Hi, this is Madonna. What's up, you guys? It's Nicki Minaj.
Is it too late now to say sorry?
Baby, don't lie. I don't wanna cry no longer.
NetSupport Radio. Nothing else comes close.
So, another little interlude there, and welcome back to you, Henry. It seems a good point to be talking about the future. So, what have you got planned for the next few months? Anything exciting in eCadet? Or we haven't mentioned it, but a really exciting part of what you do is GoBubble. So that's perhaps something we could talk about. But what's on the landscape for your tools?
Well, for us, for eCadets, we're just going through the process now of writing all of our activities for the autumn term.
Fantastic.
One of the things that we do is we ensure that our resources are always timely and fit in with exactly where the landscape is at that point, as opposed to writing them 2-3 years ago and just relying on it. So we're working on that at the moment. We've got some really good stuff coming through about screen time. That we're going to be helping the schools with, and also some of the other key issues that can come through. Also, what we're going to be doing very closely is working with yourselves in terms of developing resources that schools can use to save them time, in particular with regards to keeping kids safe in education. So there's going to be some great resources coming up there which will be free for everyone to actually look at helping the DSLs, helping the schools ensure that they're meeting what they need to do, but really giving them that opportunity to start the academic year in a good, strong, consistent way. And then really looking at getting out there and actually visiting the schools and working with people and chatting to people face-to-face through different opportunities and events where we can share and spread the word about what we're doing together and how that can help people.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so no, really excited about that. With regards to GoBubble, and thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, GoBubble is really flying at the moment, which is brilliant. So in terms of it being a safe social media for kids, it's really captured the imagination of educators in terms of them now having that different alternative where they can direct kids to, which is an area really just for kids on their own to go and interact with others. So there's been lots of interaction from Greece. So we've got pupils in Greece now chatting with kids here in the UK, same year group to year group. We've actually seen them start to teach them Greek and Latin as well, all driven by the kids.
A Ferris Stoke Paracolor.
Yeah. We've got schools in America who are coming on board ahead of the new academic year, and that's very much, again, on the back of ISTE and the work that we did with yourselves out there. And again, people, it just really captured their imagination about GoBubble as a solution, but again, how it complements NetSupport and the work that you do there.
Wasn't that lovely though? ISTE is a really good example of, based in Chicago this year. Obviously, it's their main education show of the year, very much teacher focused, school focused. But it was great to see how receptive and excited educators were to looking at that kind of joined up universal type of e-safety and DigSit package. I mean, DigSit is incredibly visible in the US, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Not least for some efforts from the very nice Marilise, who does a huge amount of work over there with the DigSit Institute.
Yes, and does great work over there. And as you say, I think what teachers appreciated was that whole school approach. You know, they could see how everything was just coming together as one nice, neat bundle, which again saves them time.
Absolutely.
And I think it's that kind of solution where teachers and educators anywhere around the world, you know, if you can give them that kind of complete package that's there that they can then pick and choose and take different bits from, you know, it really helps them. And again, I think it nicely leads on to an interesting route, which I know you've taken recently, in terms of then starting to look in terms of, well, assessment and how can actually, you know, the experience that you've had in the past help educators and help schools in terms of a new assessment solution being for the primary schools. I was just wondering if you're happy to share.
Absolutely. I mean, I hold my hands up, this is a bit of a personal crusade, this particular detour. It's not really a detour because it's in parallel to what we're already doing. We kind of touched on it earlier. You know, NetSupport's base is around supporting teachers in an instructional tech classroom, safeguarding leads and IT managers. And there's kind of one part of that landscape within a school that was kind of missing, which is, what about the non-tech classroom, where it's just the teacher or the TA that's got a tablet or a laptop and the kids are busy learning? And if we wind back to early years and we look at, you know, EYFS Key Stage 1, you know, lots of learning and monitoring of learning, you know, is done by observation. It's not tested. It's teachers observing and recognising where young people either have emerging skills or are becoming secure in their different strands. And you know what? Time plays a factor there. And we've got the benefit, I might mention again, of 30 years development experience. And within that, what you do is you learn how to not do things. And you see how things that are best intended just don't work out. So although it's kind of new, we've spent the last 2 years working with schools at a very, very good school locally to Development HQR. I'll give them a shout out for Dogsthorpe Infants. And their early years team have helped us basically develop the functionality that's allowed them to have the most effective way to monitor and assess student progress in a really quick and easy way from their tablets or from their laptop. They can take photos, they can add audio notes, they can capture observations, quickly select which children within the class it applies to, and automatically pull down all of the assessment criteria within the UK. So they can click and say, look, I'm looking at reading and writing, I'm looking at this particular measure of finger spaces and full stops on lines, and I can now say I've seen that once, no, it's been observed twice, that child is now secure in that, or they're at a developmental stage of 40 to 60 months, and that provides that kind of evidence. But when we went full circle back to when I talked about our safeguarding, you know, the point was not getting those 1,000 emails, it was getting the bigger picture. So in the same way, my view was, well, in that setting, it's not just that I want to see that little Henry has been observed against all these elements, but much more like a heat map. I want to see the whole class and see who's missing. Which gaps have we got? We haven't done enough observations to really evidence on these particular strands. Perhaps we need another few days back on numeracy. You know, there's lots of observational tasks that are done in terms of play areas outside, so being flexible in that solution. So we've just done a fresh way of doing that, which saves time, makes it easy, is a really robust way of doing it, and gives, I think, really funky reporting. Then the other strand was, if I wanted to engage with parents 5 years ago, I would probably be expecting the parent to be sat at home on their PC, receiving that information. Whereas now, most likely, their technology's in their hand. So it needs to be delivered in a format. And so we wanted to make sure we developed a parental app that goes alongside that. Because if Henry's done some fantastic collaborative work today, I want to showcase that as a student journal, and where appropriate, because each and every item isn't always appropriate, particularly it's got other young people in the photos or supporting things. But where it's appropriate and I want to celebrate Henry's success, I want to be able to share that instantly with parents, and on their app they can see for their child their successes. So we felt, well, parents often are familiar with a range of social media style apps that they have on their phone. I won't mention them by name, but we can all figure that one out. So we felt from that point of view, let's deliver an experience in the same format, which means people can quickly use it. It doesn't require training, that they can accessible. And interestingly, as we've been developing this, and it's two years worth of development time so far, and total revenue 0, because so far this is all about developing a product and making sure it's right. Some companies sort of start off by defining the price tag and then develop it up, and our view was, let's just see if we get it spot on. We believe we have. We think it's so cool that we've named it Really School, because I just felt, this is really cool. And the teachers were like, this just changes our lives in terms of the time we save. But parental engagement was almost number one on the issues and challenges that were raised by teachers, particularly in early years. But those hard to get to parents, and also back to that topic of EAL, some of those parents that didn't want to engage. So we kind of thought, well, there's a link here. If we've got a means to celebrate a child's work or just provide some updates, and it goes straight into a parent's app on their phone, they're much more likely to read that. So we've got the first part of parental engagement. And if we ask a question like, Henry's doing great in his reading, but we'd really like him to pick up another couple of red books for the next step up over the next couple of weeks, hopefully mum or dad will reply and say, well, he's been doing that, or he didn't enjoy this particular topic. And there's an opportunity to start dialogue. What I also felt was, and from conversations in the playground with many of our parents, and at Dogsthorpe they have a very diverse range of cohort. When we were talking, some really struggled with the textual notes on the books that teachers had left. The parents struggled actually reading and understanding what was done. Yet listening to the teachers speak, they were much more able to pick up the salient points and understand. So for those parents, why not send a verbal audio clip in the app? They've got an audio clip, they press the button and there's the teacher saying, he's doing fantastic, just make sure you focus on this. So it's really connecting the dots. I'm in a fortunate position where I've got some fantastic developers that work for us, and have worked for us for many years. In fact, 30 years, believe it or not.
Really?
So why not leverage that and see from the coalface how we can do something different?
That's fantastic. I mean, I'm as a parent, with Sophia now being in year 1, going into year 2, everything that you've said excites me so much, because it's always interesting. You go in for a parents' evening, and you may have a chat with the teacher, at the school gates or the school door at the end of the day or start of the day, but you never really get the full capture of what your child has achieved in school, and particularly in primary schools, where you look at the development of a child can really be astronomical in terms of how far they can get in such a short space of time. To really have a way of seeing that and engaging with it as a parent and having that opportunity to engage, I think that's superb, and we'll definitely be mentioning this to Sophia's school as soon as I corner the head on the first day of term, because it just sounds exactly what as a parent what I would want, but also what the schools and what the teachers want in terms of saving them that time. I think
going back to that kind of example now, I've cleared my throat, sorry for coughing away there. If you think about a parents' evening, once a term you go into school and you typically go and pick up the child's book out of their drawer, and you'll see in early years in Key Stage 1 lots of worksheets, but lots of pictures of the child that played that have been taken on digital camera, been printed, cut out, stuck in to provide that feedback to parents. And there's a lot of time goes on there, and actually when it comes to early years and Key Stage 1 observations, lots of that is TAs. As well as trying to deal with challenging children in the class and provide that support. They're doing that, they're finding time to cut and stick things out into things. And these are all times that savings that can be delivered. So for us it was like, your experience is exactly right. My child's new at school, have I got to wait half a term before I get some kind of feedback on what they're doing? Of course, in primary years there's lots of opportunities to meet the teacher outside, have a chat, but in the broader sense of where things are going academically. So providing the way to share that digitally. Now, the ability to share some information with parents digitally is not unique. And I certainly wouldn't be sitting here saying, hey, we've patented this fantastic new idea. However, There's different ways to do things, and the key and the experience is about how you do things that are simple, reliable, secure. Obviously, we're thinking about GDPR, where your data is stored, but alongside that is also thinking about the tiny bits. And a conversation we were all talking about at the last EdTech debate. It's those small little pieces that make the difference. Isn't it? It's not.
It really is.
It really isn't always about big things. It's about taking those small slices and saying, if we work through those bits and pieces, we'll make a difference. So the feedback so far has been outstanding. And for us as a vendor that has a range of solutions in education, it just kind of completes the jigsaw puzzle. We've got something to support you in education, no matter what your role is within a school. And that's a good starting point. And we hope that means that we can help take a very small part in supporting and raising school standards. So that's got to be good.
Excellent.
I think we're almost closing up for a wrap up now, Henry. So you're the expert on this topic, so I'm going to put the last closing questions to you, which is, for our listeners, what would be your top tips for every aspiring digital citizen right now?
Right, okay, what would be my top tips? I suppose to encapsulate my top tips, I'd say that it's part of a fab theory. So you need to look at some different layers that go together. And I'd say that you certainly have to look at online safety as being the core, because that runs throughout everything with digital citizenship. You need that as the foundation. I think once you have an appreciation of how to keep yourself safe and how to ensure that you've got the right protections in place, you can then start to move into roles around, having a look at your personal responsibility for your actions, showing respect to others. Then have a look at the community, have a look at your PLN, have a look at who you're connecting with in the community. And then in terms of the type of content you're looking at, how can you consume that in a critical way? So don't always take things on face value. Think about, why is somebody providing this to me? And then think about how you can start to create exciting content that would make others happy. And I think at that point, when you start to have that and you're looking at content that can help engage and inspire others, then really it moves you through to in terms of how you can influence others in a positive way, how you can innovate in terms of what's out there, and then really become a strong digital citizen leader, really, and start to push that forward. So I'd say groundwork of online safety, have a look at your own personal steps, then really think about the people you're connecting with and connect in a good, positive way to help them.
And I'm guessing, as a roundup to that, is if they were to visit netsupportdna.com and our education section, they might find in the near future some combined fab tips from NetSupport and eCadets that will give them a steer.
Yeah, I think, and hopefully they find them fabulous.
Right, well, from one fabulous topic to a fabulous guest to have today, Henry, thank you for coming in and having a chat, and looking forward to working with you in the coming months.
Thank you very much indeed.
Check out the complete IT asset management, classroom instruction, and safeguarding solution from NetSupport.
Hi, this is Madonna.
You are listening to the one and only NetSupport Radio.
Hi, I'm Ed Sheeran.